you, Deborah. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. The world-famous Paul Preston.
And you know it's all inside right here in the last page. Norcom West.
What a collection.
Everything you need to know is right there.
Well, good evening.
Make sure it gets your raffle tickets back there, also the gun raffle.
Gun raffle, there you go. Buy your guns. You're going to need
Trade you.
it.
This is your autograph copy. There you go.
Anyway, and thank you, Mr. Noriega, for coming out and giving us really good information on Common Core. And he didn't know, but I was in the system from custodian to superintendent for 41 years. A little bit about trying to stop this Common Core business. Yes, you laugh a little bit about my terms and all this. Anyway, but it's really important that we get behind whatever initiative there is to bring awareness and to stop Common Core or anything dealing with
$12, but anything you have is fine.
And again, I'm going to go back to this comment that I always make about Arnie Duncan. Because I actually had a meeting with Arnie Duncan when I was the superintendent. And I always made this comment, and I think the other 16 people at the table 100% agreed with me. And that is that Arnie Duncan is as smart as a box of rocks. Literally. He's that smart. And he's running the system. And I say that because, he truly is running the system. And now he's called for, because you see, there's so much resistance to Common Core out there, and so much confusion. He has called for the federalization. He's actually called for it. He's used that terminology of public education. We don't know what we're doing at the local level. We're just too stupid. That's the way Arnie Duncan looks at it, or President Barack Hussein Obama. Anyway, okay, I'd like to take some questions first, because I know there's some things you want answered before I get into my things.
Check out your name.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes. He was in Utah, was in the New York Times this past week, where the legislators there balked on giving permission to the federal government to take their rights to deal with.
Liam, don't let anybody walk out without one. Give them some free books back there, okay? Take a stack with you.
What do you call them?
Right there. Take a stack. Make sure everybody has it. And even if they don't have money, just give it to them, okay?
It goes back to the Hague Convention, and every state has to sign on to the agreement, or it doesn't become the law.
When you have a calling, you have a calling.
So it blocked that 19 states have already signed up. It was interesting. The New York Times put them down for it. That went to another source that said, here's what they're really up to. And
I almost think that I wish I didn't have to live in a time like this. Let me get some 12, 12, and 12 is 32, so.
could be wrong with one of the simple states in there that balked on this, because now
Take a little
pressure is
time.
on them that if you don't sign this, your people are going to lose your.
You're going to suffer something at home. Right. And that's the technique. Right. That's the technique that they're using all over. And that's ultimately tied in, I think, with the one of the human rights organizations of the United Nations. Right. Yeah. Correct.
So, you just travel in the state?
Well, in the western states.
I have a brother down in Needles, California. I just wondered if they may want to.
They're going to use them for staging areas for military
Get through
depots.
And they ask you about your travel.
That's right.
Or do you schedule
No,
on
called
No,
war.
email me directly. I answer all my emails.
really?
I'm going to get into Jane Helm in a second, but any other questions
Oh, that's a
besides my
fiction novel
topics?
that I wrote. It's
The recent shooting, Jane Helm in Baltimore. Yes, sir.
Oh, is it?
One.
4 or 3 days?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll give it to you for $5 if you want it. There you go. No, we'll be even. Oh, I owe you. Yeah.
No, you don't owe me any.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right. See, the real takeover of public education in America started before there was public education. And it started with a guy by the name of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. And they came up with the Communist Manifesto. And the 10th plank in the Communist Manifesto, the 10th plank is free and public education. But we Americanized free public education because that's what the socialists were trying to bring in at the time. After 1840, they thought this guy, Karl Marx, had a great idea. So we'll take it to this new country, and we'll set up all these utopian societies. It's out of those utopian societies that you got the free public education. But the problem with what happened with Marx's theory, you gotta remember, Marx never lived to see any of his theories performed. Did you know that? He died before anybody implemented anything. So what we did is we Americanized Karl Marx. Great, free public education. We figured that one out. But what did they put in place? A school board. A school board and not a central government. You see, because Karl Marx would want education to be controlled from Washington, which is precisely what they want to do now. Everything from education. They're going to have 10 or 12, maybe 30 people. That's who came up with Common Core.
This one's the one.
It was about, I think, about 12 people. None of them educators, really. A lot of it, academics and philosophers and so on. And you know, this kind of like ancient history now with me because we've covered that. And that's ultimately what they wanted. But we put in a school board, and the school board controlled the finances, the curriculum, teacher hiring, firing, principals, everything. It's called a democratic process. And that was the antithesis. Of course, Karl Marx would never stand for that. But it worked out well for us. It really did. Didn't you, question?
It is.
Any other ones?
That's what you need to.
What's going on at the Alliance of Oregon?
Well, the latest is as of, let's see, Friday. A helicopter landed at the mine. And I guess I can break the story. Some other people showed up. Because you see that BLM, they've been outfoxed. They've been found to be unconstitutional in their behavior. And I gotta tell you, Jay Helm, you'll see what's happening there, but also with the Bundy Ranch and what's going on up at Galice, you're gonna see the collapse of the BLM. You will see it. Because they've been outed for unconstitutional behavior. And we now know the mechanism by which they work. And it was Cliven Bundy who's put a stop to that. Cliven Bundy saw the contract. In 1993, he did not sign it. You may remember Cliven came to our conference over here. I had a long talk with Cliven about that contract. And I said, Cliven, what was so unique about that contract in 1993? He said,
take one for somebody.
The contract language was not from my country. Those are his words. I saw that in a TV interview, and I called the ranch to get him to be on my show. And I said, Cliven, have you ever read Agenda 21? He said, I've heard about it. I said, Cliven, here's your homework assignment. Thank you. Coming from an old teacher. Cliven, study Agenda 21. And he and his wife did.
They give you a free one.
2 days later, he said to me, the language in the contract is the same language about sustainability that's in Agenda 21. At the time, there were 53 ranchers in the area. 52, to use his words, have been managed out of business. He didn't comply with the contract. He didn't jump on board. He didn't identify or recognize their legality. And you see, that's one of the reasons they backed off so quickly. They've done the same thing up here. Because the miners said, well, we talked to this guy by the name of Almond Bundy. And you guys might remember, remember Bundy's bodyguard? Buddha. I made the mistake. You remember him. I made the mistake of calling him Bubba. And it was over to the church, and I said, well, Bubba, just a minute. Oh no. And he's like, that's the man, I didn't mean it. Don't hurt me.
Don't worry about
So,
it. Are you sure you can? That's crazy.
Bubba shows up at the mine too. He was up there. Right now what they have are the Oath Keepers up there, and they're asking for help and assistance. So if you go to my website and click on the Oath Keeper icon right there, it'll take you right to the police mining district, and they're asking for help right now. Because, you see, the BLM might want to play hardball now. They're not going to use any military. They're bringing in Blackwater. That's what they're bringing in. Blackwater. It's a private contracting company, security company. But it doesn't bother the Oath Keepers. We're just going to bring in more people. And hopefully the constitutional sheriff, did I say that? Dave Daniel, who's now seen the light, brother, he's a constitutional sheriff because we outed him. Maybe he'll act constitutionally. I doubt it. Because he's bought off too. So things might happen. But I got to tell you, the federal government has figured out this is their Achilles heel for land consumption and takeover of any property in America. They can't do it anymore. And we have an attorney, Fred Kelly Grant, who's a former prosecutor from Baltimore, who knows that. They're applying the same principles with CARB, California Air Resources Board. And that's why he's suing CARB to stop them. They are acting completely illegally, lawlessly. And those of you that might remember, I was ranting on the radio for 3 hours and saying, you know, it's really wrong they're acting so illegal. It's really wrong that they performed experiments on children. You know what they did to my YouTube? They took it off in 2 days. World record time. But we're going to sue them. Okay, Wiki. Okay, the shooting. Protecting the First Amendment.
There's a message in there.
How many of you know Pamela Geller?
Leave it up to you to figure out what it is. You know what it is.
1, 2, 3. Pamela Geller. She has been fighting for our First Amendment rights in the face of Sharia law for years. She's the one who stopped the mosque at the New York site. She's that person. She's been on my radio show a couple times. I've talked to her several times. And she's a courageous woman. She walks around with bodyguards all the time. And so what she did in response to Charlie Hebdo is she sponsored a cartoon contest in Texas. Because we have a First Amendment right here in this country, which apparently the terrorists don't understand or don't want to. Certainly don't want to. They want us to submit, which we never will. So she sponsored this conference in the same facility in which in January the Islamist had a sort of celebratory, I guess you would say, conference in support of the, well, I'll say it. A lot of other people aren't going to say it. I'll be more than happy to. They were congratulating the terrorists. And a lot of people protested outside. So she sponsored this conference. We're going to have a cartoon conference, and we're going to bring back cartoons about Muhammad for the last 1,400 years. Okay, 300 people show up. How many have heard about this? Okay, just so I get a lot of hands, because this just happened. Approximately, I think it was about 5:30 our time. They were ending the program. And everybody was going to collectively walk out in front. And what happened was that these two terrorists show up, armed with AK-47s and barrel magazines. You know what those are? Right. So what happened They got out of the car and were confronted by an unarmed security guard. Next to him was a policeman from Garland, Texas, who had a gun that they couldn't see. They started shooting at him, both of them. Police officer took his gun out and killed both of them. And this is the hottest story going on right now. I mean, because you've got people on CNN that have come out in support of the terrorists in Islam. I mean, this, what's her name, Alison Carmaroda, it was great. Pamela Geller just went after her today. And it was a wonderful thing to see. I don't have the clip. But, okay, who did this? I mean, it didn't take rocket science to figure this one out. ISIS did it. This was a call to action, and ISIS did it. And it came out of a couple guys that were planted and embedded in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, they're $12.
This is how they're going to run their program. Pick a soft target, come heavily armed, and kill a lot of people. You see the pattern there? This is the plan that they have for us. Except they pulled this one. They didn't know they had a complete SWAT team in there. Do you have that picture, Wiki? Oh, there's one of the guys. He wrote this just before he pulled the guns up and started shooting. The beefy guy, the guys who look like me. It's up at the first one. That's the security guard who got shot. Big hero, right. Confronted him, they've got two AK-47s, he's got no gun. He confronts him. There's another guy. The SWAT team. Oh, there you go. All right, see the guy that's really beefy there? They had like 12 of those guys in the center, all loaded up to the hill. And it cost them $10,000 extra to bring security. But they were out for bear. Well, it just took one guy with one gun. So really what we saw was an incredible display yesterday of the action and power of our First and Second Amendments. Thomas.
Now we saw expert marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when guys shoot down with when he's shooting out with the AK-47. Okay, so where we have it right now is the discussion is out there. And there's this big, thing going on in the general media. Nobody watches the mainstream media anyway, that they're coming out in support of Islam. That's going to abate. Because, you see, Pamela Geller is like with us. She's in the newsstream media. And she gets how people are getting their information now. It's not from the mainstream media. It's from the newsstream media. Off their internet, the tablets, the cell phones, and things like that. That's how people are getting their news. Okay, Wiki, Jade Helm? Okay. Let's see, Operation Jade Helm. Believe it or not, in many parts of the country it's in full swing. And you don't even know it. Okay, I guess you can kind of see that. There you go. Oh, there you go. Could you get the red one blown up? Happen? There you go. Okay, these are the states, the 7 original states to go along with Operation Jade Helm. Now remember, this was an operation that was designed for you, your community, to invite the military in. Right? You invite them in. And you pass a resolution inviting the military in so that they can do their operations. And once you sign, you're done, right? Details. Initially, Jade Helm was supposed to start July 11th and end September 11th. And then I said, well, that's probably a bad taste. So they went July 15th to September 15th. Little political decision there, I think. These are the 7 states it was supposed to occur in. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. Okay, Wiki, the next map. That one. Okay, notice the pictures. This is a copy of what most elementary schools in Mexico have. This is the original map showing where see where it says Mexican secession? It says Azatlan. All that territory was given up and taken over by the United States after the Mexican-American War. We paid for it, there were treaties, it was legally done. But Mexicans, and in particular, I guess you'd say extremist Mexicans, associated with Mecha and La Raza, who were following a guy named Trotsky, decided, no, that's not good. We want to inspire all these Mexicans to take that back from the United States. Remember Trotsky? Ever heard of him?
At least he died in Mexico.
Oh yeah, he was assassinated. So this is where we get this notion. In Wiki, let's go back to the red map. No, not that one. That one. Gee, all those states just so happen to be involved in Operation Jade Helm. Now, isn't that convenient? President of the United States, he signed, well, 2 executive orders, and he passed off an executive order to Jay Johnson, an illegal order that would have got him impeached had he signed it, for amnesty. Now, what's happening at the border? Anybody know? Yeah, there's nothing. People just coming across the border openly. Estimated, and I think the last time I was here, it was estimated at that time to be just under 5 million people. The government story was 100,000. A Judge Annan filed an order against the executive orders and stopped it, and then had to go back and bring in the President's Department of Justice people and say, why have you not stopped it? I signed this order months ago and you still have it going. That's because they're lawless. And they're doing it anyway. Now some people will say, well, it's just 100,000 people. No, that brought 5 million. A little word to the wise. I talked for 3 hours to my source on Friday afternoon. They're still flying them in. Nothing has stopped. And they got spanked today in the courts. The court came down with an order. Nothing's going to change. They're just going to be lawless. So all these people are flooding across the border. Now, I wonder what states they're going to. What states are you going to claim? All of those. And this is, if you've ever worked or been a part of public education in California, and you've had Hispanic students in particular, for a lot of them that are really radicalized, Azatlan is the big dream, and they want to make it happen. And the Obama administration knows this, and they've tied on to Trotsky's notion. Isn't it funny how all good communists stick together? But we're getting pushback now. Can we get the picture with all the people? I walked you guys through the process and procedure about how you invite these people in. Started in February, and a lot of counties and cities went along with it. And they agreed to have the military come in and do covert operations. Oh, I forgot that part. Set up teams in the middle of the night to spy on you. If it sounds a little bit like the Nazis, that's because it is like the Nazis. You can't put it any other way. They're following the same template. Okay. We said at the time, I said on my radio show, I've been interviewed on other radio shows about maybe upwards of 20 times since we started reporting on Operation Jade Helm. And I said, hello, you guys can take it back. If you don't like it, confront your city council and take it back and put a stop to it. And other people started doing it. And this is a meeting in Texas just last Wednesday. And they stopped it. They stopped it. And there's other counties and cities in Texas that are pulling out. They don't want any part of it. It's really catching on like a prairie fire. Governor Abbott, what Governor Abbott did is because of all the pressure from a lot of people, Alex Jones and all his people just went nuts on this. And by the way, you can see the complete bifurcation of the mainstream media and the newsstream media in this. There are people showing up at these city council meetings where they've only had 1 or 2 people. They're coming in the hundreds. And they're putting a stop to this. That's local control, one community at a time. And it's starting to work. So now instead of just 1 or 2, you've got dozens of counties and cities that are bumping out. A lot of the communities in Colorado are opting out as well. Yeah.
I got a really nice one for you to change it a little bit. There was a Muslim group in a town in Texas.
Right.
And they went to the Chamber of Commerce and said, well, we would like to have a Muslim this, Muslim that. Well, this woman,
Right.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the woman told them off and how the cow is established in no certain terms. She said, this is the United States, we have our laws, and if you don't like our laws, take a hike.
Right. And that's what everybody needs to say. Because this is a war. I mean, it's a war in which, as Mr. Noriega says, they're vipers. They're here to kill us. Let's just be straight up. They are here to kill, especially Christians. As what we've seen, of course, nobody wants to talk about the rights of Christians being beheaded, right? Let's see if CNN talks about that. That's a good question. I might call them.
How many Christians has Obama brought into the country besides hundreds of
None.
thousands of Muslims?
None. Zero.
I got a question, Paul.
Yes.
It baffles me. What do the ground troops and the basic troops think about this situation? I mean, they're American citizens. It's their country. Do you have any feedback on what they're...
I'll give you a little story. Any sergeants in here? Raise your hand, and I want everybody to see the smile.
Yeah,
All right. All right. I'm going to ask a sergeant. Okay, if you're a loyal American as a sergeant, and you had the situation to procure certain equipment that you just didn't really agree with where it was going, what would you do? Look at him, he's giggling. What?
Go the other way.
Do you think that's happening right now?
I hope so.
Yeah, it is.
Because I talked to some of them, they said they're not going to go along with it. Both keepers.
Okay. I'll get to the question in a second because this is great. Okay. This is what I tell people when they're really stressed out about Jade Helm. The sergeants are in charge.
They always are.
No. They're really in charge here. We know that they're in charge. No, they've taken charge. That's a big difference. And yes, there's equipment that's all over the nation, and somehow they just don't know where it is. Isn't that terrible? And they're going to need it for Operation Jade Helm if it goes active. It just won't be there. Does that make sense, Sergeant?
Yeah, I remember like carloads of munitions and stuff in railroad cars.
Yeah. What do we have a hand in that? But, that's what I tell people about the sergeants in charge right now. And the administration, hopefully you don't hear the YouTube, but the administration is clueless about it. Because they're clueless about the military. And isn't that a nice thing? That's one for us. That's one for us. So there are things that are happening out there to protect us from what might be happening with Operation Jade Helm.
Makes me feel better.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the status in our county right now as far as taking and accepting something?
I haven't heard anybody taking people in, but the problem that we have with what they're trying to do, the quick end of it is that what the president signed in the first time was the New Americans executive order, and the other one was the Receiving Communities executive order. And the New Americans executive order is anybody coming across the border. And they're pulling out all stops. They're going after criminals that were deported. Come on down. They're doing that. They're flying in daily flights from Central and South America with children. MS-13 kids, which are killers. I'm just telling you like it is. I worked with MS-13 kids years ago. It's sad, but it's true. They're here. And they're going to be coming to our communities. They're building special projects all around California right now. Housing projects. In some communities, empty homes are being refurbished and these new Americans are going to be placed in. That's happening, and I was given some information I can't confirm today, but there is some of that going on locally, I was told. And the idea is to overpopulate with these illegal immigrants and drive the normal population of American citizens out. Some are and some are not.
What do we have?
Well, that's going to be, that's a good question. That's going to be something that is going to have to come up with our sheriff. We're going to have to confront them about this. Oh, let's do that. Larry, we have to have the sheriff here.
What?
Talk to Larry.
County sheriff. We can get him again, yeah.
Okay, well, we can get him in here and have made. Here's part of the problem with these guys. A lot of them really don't know. They don't have a clue. And when you talk to them, I'll give you an example. Today, I had Chris Street on the show. And, Chris is the co-host of the show. He's the unofficial co-host, or official, whatever you want to call Chris. Chris is incredibly brilliant. And he's doing a whole bunch of articles right now for Breitbart. He just did one on George Soros. George Soros is going to have to pay $13 billion in back taxes. Well, I know. But, the thing is, it was Chris who outed him, and I'm proud of him for that. He took the risk and outed him.
Hey, Paul?
Yeah.
Is he going to pay after Al Sharpton pays his back tax?
Oh, I'm sure he will. The problem with him is that a lot of this money he has to pay in taxes goes to the Irish government. And they're not going to treat him like we Americans are. That's a big blow to him, because as you know, it's him who's responsible for all this stuff. For all the stuff that we're seeing with all the riots and organizing the riots and stuff. They're paying for the bill for it. Anyway, Chris was on the show today. What was I going to say? What was I talking about before I brought that up? Constitutional sheriff, what else? Okay, sorry.
Something about Breitbart.
Oh, Breitbart, right. Protecting what? Oh, protecting our borders. Yeah, I can't remember. I'll come to it in a second. Oh, I know, it's NAFTA. Not NAFTA, yeah, NAFTA and the Pacific Trade Agreement. Okay, Chris has been opposed to this for years. He's been fighting tooth and nail behind the scenes, and a lot of people don't know this. But I got him to talk about it on the radio today. If you don't remember, it was Chris Street, my good friend, your good friend, while appearing before the House Ways and Means Committee in 2010 with Barney Frank right there. And Chris warned the nation we were going to lose our credit rating. And Barney Frank, you just don't know what you're talking about. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, we were downgraded. And a week after that, the guy who was opposing Barney Frank called Chris. You don't mind if I interview you, do you? about Barney Frank? Well, Barney decided not to run. And that's how we got rid of Barney Frank. Okay, a year ago, Chris did, and I know all this because he and I talk all the time, but Chris about a year, maybe about a year to quarter, maybe only a year and a half, had an opportunity to sit down with Jeff Sessions, Senator Jeff Sessions. And again, Chris is an expert in China. He's an expert in all the economies of the Asian area. And he sort of demanded with his staff a meeting with Jeff Sessions. And this is how it goes, and this is why I say maybe the sheriff's ignorant. He and Jeff Sessions sit down, and Chris says to him, Senator Sessions, do you know anything about this Trans-Pacific Agreement? He goes, I've heard something about it. And Chris says, Can I have 15 minutes of your time? Which turned into 3 hours. Who's the only person denouncing this agreement in the Senate today? Jeff Sessions. And it will go down in flames. And here's the reason why. First of all, the president wants fast track on this agreement. It's written by corporations. You and I will never see it. We've never seen it. This agreement has never come out visually. Chris and people at Breitbart are getting information from insiders about what it is. The biggest thing is this. It completely opens our borders to anybody who wants to come in and claim themselves to be a worker from any nation on the world, in the world. Wide open. You see what they're trying to do? Flood us. Destroy us. Right. That's what they're trying to do. But you have Jeff Sessions and other people that has caught on. And other people are now starting to catch on in the Senate, and they're demanding answers from the president saying no to it. It's starting to really go down fast. And we want it to go down faster. And I hope that as we get more information about what's going on with the amnesty agreement and all this other stuff that's happening out there, we can tag this president with more of that. You see, there is progress being made. It's incremental, it's small. But people need to wake up. It's like Jeff Sessions. He's clueless. And he missed the vote on NAFTA the first time. And in his meeting with Chris, he said that. Probably shouldn't have voted for NAFTA. But he didn't know. You see, this is the problem that this administration and all new administrations have, and that's the internet. The news stream media. We're getting this information out like we've never gotten it out before. And they're realizing it. Yes, Tom?
Well, I have a hard time buying they're clueless. I'm more of Mr. Noriega.
Well, you can be a clueless viper. And you're still a viper. Well, Tom, you can't, when they're not being informed about it, and they're not being told about it, I mean, I've talked to these guys, they're just clueless. And when you inform them, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, I'll take an example. Goes to Common Core. The night before Arnold Schwarzenegger, in January 2010, signed No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top legislation, I was getting calls from senators and assembly members saying, Paul, what does this mean? They did not know, Tom. They didn't know. I know they're clueless about the Constitution. And I said, look up the 10th Amendment. That's what we have.
Well, you said, and I believe, Obama's no fool. He is doing exactly what he wants to do.
Well, he's doing exactly what he's told.
I've got some money. So.
His people are not fools. They absolutely the plan, right? The plan is so clear to me, and hopefully we can enlighten everybody else. And this is where it's happening, guys. It's happening with you. It really is. It's one person at a time. It's like I opened my radio show, stopping totalitarianism, one community at a time. You're the one community. You know people, people know you. So here's the point. Get the word out. You're having an effect. You might not realize it, but first of all, the fact you're here is a problem for them. You know that, don't you? It's a big problem. You're the only organized resistance against them. Let's stay strong. Okay, Baltimore. Last thing. Baltimore had problems last week, didn't they? Freddie Gray, he was an individual who was being chased down by the police. Freddie Gray, is that right?
Yeah. Freddie Gray.
Yeah. Anyway.
Dope dealer.
Yeah. Being chased down by the police, ultimately he died. Riots break out. Okay, this gets into this little domain, and this is really important. 21st century policing. Have you ever heard of that? The President's Task Force on 21st century policing signed executive order, and the number is somewhere, don't ask for the number, but I could remember the date, it was December 14th. He signed that into law. And it was a task force that was developed over several months, and Miss Blake, the mayor of Baltimore, was given the inside edge on becoming a member of that task force, as well as Kevin Johnson. Yeah, you know Kevin Johnson. So they got into this whole community policing thing. And from that came the COPS program. Now what's happening to cities here in California? Let's talk Stockton. Stockton, what happened to Stockton? They went bankrupt, right? They had to go through a restructuring. And what they did in the restructuring is they got rid of all their police. Now, isn't that convenient that this bankruptcy and the restructuring would fall at the exact same time that the so-called COPS program from 21st century policing comes out? From the Obama administration. Sign up for the COPS program and you get all kinds of money. Stockton has that. Here's the deal. This is taking orders directly from the administration. When you sign up for that program, you will take orders from the Department of Justice and the President. And you saw that with Miss Blake when Al Sharpton showed up. If you ever saw that video of that. He was taking orders, or she was taking orders from him. Why do you think they stood down the first night and let the city burn? They stood down the night they came out with the judgment on the, what was it, for Ferguson. They stood down that night. And what happened? The city burned. They also stood down at Benghazi. Same exact thing. Same exact scenario. Yeah. Except it was blown up by a couple of heroes. You see, this is the kind of game they play. That's their game. Now, how many of you did not know that was the game with these just now? Raise your hand. How many just had? Okay. Now you know. You can recognize it. You can see it. You can call it up. And that's what's happening in the news stream media. We're seeing that, and people are calling up the administration on it. And they're stumbling. What happened over the weekend with them was worse. Friday, you have this attorney general come out and lays down charges on 6 police officers. 3 black, 3 white, and she's black. Comes from a policing history. 34 years old, clueless. By the way, she's more experienced in law than the president. She's a real attorney, and she's prosecuted people. The president has never tried anybody. He's never written a legal brief. And his law license was revoked. Just thought I'd throw that in there. But what does she do? The COPS program is this. The case is made that your city and your community cannot handle itself. So therefore the feds must step in. Just like education, right? That's the notion. She comes out, lays down all these charges, and everybody celebrates. Yeah, not everybody, but most people do. Well, that was great. And I said it on the radio. I was celebrating along with them. Because why? The city of Baltimore proved that it could stand up for itself and didn't need the feds. And what happened, as I was told from my sources, the White House went ballistic because she didn't follow along with the program. She screwed up. Now everybody's going to say, why did you need the feds there? You guys did a great job. And they're saying it now. And what's her name? Valerie Jarrett. She's the one calling all the shots. She's really angry. I was told that. And that's a good thing. There are places where we're pushing back. We just have to continue and not stop. I just want to leave you with that. Dorothy? You have a question?
I think it's time to stop.
Okay. Why Larry tried that one? Yes, sir. One more.
And I'm stopping.
Quickly, work, Dorothy.
I can't stop Paul Preston. Yes, sir.
That stops him. That stops him every time. Tell him it's happy hour.
You do it. You're the boss.
Well, you got his attention.
Find out how quick can we actually respond. They need to know that.
Same age as my daughter. She's going to get that book to read.
Go further with it, they know the timetable, like how long does it take to actually.
I understand what you're saying, but let me say this about that. There has not been not one successful operation conducted by this administration in almost 7 years, period, end of subject.
Taken out.
Yes, there's not one. You can't tell me one, you can't find one. Now, some people say we tore up the Middle East and all that. Any deliberate operation he's tried to do here on the homeland has never succeeded, including Bundy Ranch. It's not going to work. And we're on to it. That's the problem. They're pushing their agenda so quickly right now, and it's
You
not
guys
working.
can make it.
Now Soros has problems, Kevin.
Huh? Well, you got here before it started.
Yeah, I remember that. But that was not a prolonged incident and would not sustain itself. And it didn't, and they knew that. Okay, anything else?
Happy
That's the
hour.
last one, and I got to make an announcement.
Paul, did you see where Texas is leading the way again and they're hardening their own grid?
Right. EMP, I'll talk about that the next time. And also, those of you that don't have computers, get the word out. We're working with FUR. Deborah's in the back there. We're going to start doing some computer classes over at FUR with about 10 computers. And we'll let you know when that's going to be. So we're coming up to the election cycle, and you guys can make a difference. If you don't have computers, we can teach you how to get the emails out, write simple emails, and start blasting to hundreds of people and become your own, I guess you would say, website. Yeah. Becky? Basically, basic computer instruction on how to operate emails. It's not specialized stuff. No, it's very simple. Very, very simple. Okay, Larry, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Happy hour. Thank you, Paul.